I want to make sure that I get these names right, so I'm going to look them up as I'm speaking to you. There were a couple of stars out there, heroes, who helped to ensure that the shooters at the Kansas City parade were not able to injure any more people than sadly they did. And I want to make sure that I get their names right. I shared one of them. One of the hero Chiefs fans that tackled the alleged shooter, Paul Contreras. Another one was a man named Paul Filter. Those names, I want to make sure, I might not have pronounced them correctly, but I want to make sure that we give these heroes their due. We still, at least so far as I know, have not been given the names of the shooters at the Chiefs parade, but it appears to have been a dispute that had nothing to do with the Chiefs parade, and two people or more who had issues with each other just opened up firing handguns in a crowded Chiefs parade situation and killed, tragically, one mother of two, and many others were shot as well. I think over 20 injured. But it doesn't appear to have been targeted at the Chiefs parade at all. In fact, this is emblematic of what happens all too often in American cities every day. That is, young men, almost always young men, who typically have a long record of violent behavior, are not kept behind bars, and are instead allowed to be out on the streets, and they end up victimizing 100% innocent people. And not surprisingly, Adam Schefter and Rich Eisen and Robert Griffin III, and I'm sure there were many other public sports media figures who immediately demanded gun control as soon as they heard about this shooting, are probably going to stop paying attention now because they almost pay no attention to most violent crime in cities, particularly when, as here, it appears to involve two young black men. The reality is this: if we really want to address shootings in America, we have to have conversations about who does the shooting. And overwhelmingly, as a percentage of the population, young black men commit exorbitant percentages of the shootings, right? Black men between the ages of 16 and 40 represent about 2 or 3% of the United States population. They commit over half of all murders. I want you to think about that for a sec. 2 or 3% of the population, young black men, commit over half of all murders in the United States. Most people, certainly not people in sports media who are talking about the Kansas City Chiefs shooting, parade shooting, will even mention that. Because the racial dynamics of who commits shooters makes them so uncomfortable that they won't address it. To me, you got to have honest conversations. You can't solve violent crime without focusing your investigation on the people who commit violent crime. Overwhelmingly, the victims of young black men are other young black men. The rate of murder for young black men is off the charts compared to white and Asian, and even overwhelming compared to Hispanic individuals in this country. So instead of talking about, oh, let's get rid of guns, if you want to get rid of guns, I'm a First Amendment guy, make the argument to get rid of guns. And some of you do. And if you want to repeal the Second Amendment and you want to confiscate all the guns in America, you have the right to do so in the Democrat political process. If you get the Second Amendment repealed, go for it. Make that argument. Don't tiptoe up to it and say guns are the problem, and then when I ask for specifics, okay, specifically what should be done to stop this from happening, there are probably a dozen, 20 felonies that were violated, laws, in what these guys did in their shooting at Kansas City. We've prohibited this for murder is illegal. What I believe should happen is violent criminals should be taken off the streets and put into prison and kept there. I think that would make everyone safer. White, black, Asian, Hispanic. That's what should happen. The reason it doesn't is because young black men commit too many of violent crimes, and people are concerned that the proportion of people in prison is too racially divisive because too many black men are in prison. Let me ask you this. Does anybody ever say, and they say, oh, the prison system is racist. Criminal justice system is racist. Let me ask you this. Anyone ever say criminal justice system and our prison system is sexist? I never hear that argument. 95% of all violent felonies are committed by men. Men are only half of the population. Why are women only committing 5% of violent felonies? Why are the police sexist? You never hear that argument. It's because women don't commit crimes at anywhere near the level that men do. And they certainly don't commit anywhere near as many violent crimes. So let's have an actual discussion about where crime is, who commits it, and how we stop it, not by immediately saying guns are the problem. And let me give you one analogy to think about here. I have never been arrested so far. I am 44 years old. I have a spotless criminal history. I've never been arrested for a crime. I've never been handcuffed. I've never been placed in the back of a police car. I have never come close, to my knowledge, to ever being arrested for any criminal violation. Chances are most of you watching or listening to this are similar. It's actually quite rare that you would be arrested. You know, the average person who commits a murder has been arrested double-digit times. Double digits. They've committed a bevy of violent crimes before they get arrested. Worth thinking about how that happens, okay? So that is part one. Part two is this that I would ask you, everyone out there, to think about. I've never been arrested, as I said. If I got a DUI, you guys know I like to drink beer. I even have my own beer company. I like liquor. I enjoy having an adult beverage. Usually, if I'm going to have even one adult beverage, I take an Uber. I take Ubers everywhere. I just don't want to risk it. I don't want to have to worry about getting behind the wheel. But if I got arrested for a DUI, and if my defense was, after my DUI arrest, it's not my problem, I didn't break the law, the issue here is cars. The car is the issue with my DUI. Every single one of you out there would roll your eyes and you'd be like, you got behind the wheel, dude. You drank too much. You violated the law, and then you got behind the wheel and you drove a car. Your DUI is not a car problem. It's a you problem. You are responsible for the choices that you made that led to you getting arrested for a DUI. And I would agree with that entire argument. But every time there's a gun incident, people on the left, instead of blaming the criminals who violate the law with the guns, immediately say the gun is the issue. The car isn't the issue with the DUI, just like the gun isn't the issue with the shooting. The person is the issue that violated the law. I would just encourage you to use that analogy in your head every time you see the Adam Schefters or the RG3s or the Rich Eisens of the world. Let me mention Rich Eisen in particular, too, because I said this on Twitter as well. You know what the first thing we did in Ukraine when Russia invaded was? Pass out guns to every man that would take a gun in the country. Much of those weapons have been purchased by our taxpayer dollars. As soon as Russia invaded, the first thing Ukraine did was say, give us more guns and they got guns in the hands of as many of their citizens as they could. You know what happened on October 7th? Rich Eisen's Jewish. I would love to hear him explain this. Hamas stormed into innocent people's homes, raped, murdered, pillaged Jewish people because of their religious faith, because of their ethnicity. It's the largest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. Do you think any of the Jewish people that had guns to protect themselves thought, man, I wish I didn't have a gun today? Of course not. Just think about that. The first thing we do when our country is under threat, we want weapons in the hands of citizens. The first thing we want when our families are under attack, we want weapons in our own hands. And you want to take those weapons away from law-abiding citizens? There are hundreds of millions of guns in the United States. How are you going to seize them all? And do you think criminals are going to continue to obey the law? They're not already. Just a really bad argument, bad faith, bad logic that I see playing out all the time.